Changeworking, moving minds for change that lasts.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Changeworking, a show for practitioners and coaches who help their clients create change. My name is Ruckus, and as always, I'll be in conversation with James Tripp. In today's episode, we're diving into beliefs, not just the ones our clients talk about, but the deeper ones they're not even aware that they hold. We explore how beliefs shape behavior, how they can hide in plain sight, and what it takes to loosen their grip, including some unexpected examples from James' life. We also look at how a belief doesn't have to be true to be powerful, and why questioning truth itself can sometimes be the most freeing thing of all. So here's my conversation with James on beliefs, truths, and trances of identity.
Here's an explanation I often use. I say to people, they come in, they sit in a chair. I said, were you aware that you believed that chair would bear your weight when you sat in it? And the answer is no. But they clearly believed that it would, or they wouldn't have sat in it.
Right.
So until you bring a conscious attention to the belief, the person doesn't even know they hold the belief. It's outside of consciousness. So I will sometimes, say to people, do you believe that chimpanzees wear leopard print pajamas in the wild? They say no. I go, right, did you know that you didn't believe that until I ask you? Because they answer without missing a beat.
Right.
Right. So the question is, was it a pre-existing belief or did it come into being in that moment when I asked it, right? Now, in some senses, what would your answer to that be? I don't actually know the answer, but I find it fascinating nonetheless. So, beliefs are an interesting thing. When we're looking at them, when a belief is spoken out loud, that ain't the belief. That's an expression of the belief, right? And the belief itself, we don't know what it consists in. We don't even know if it consists in conceptual structures, linguistic structures, something beyond that. Once you start to get to it, it's just like we don't know the beliefs we're operating by. So I used to claim that intellectually that we were, as human beings, blank slates. But I was surprised to discover that I actually didn't believe that. I just thought I believed it. I believed that we had innate talents and innate characteristics and all of that. But intellectually, I would proclaim something different and really believe that I believed it. But my behavior revealed something else and my answers to certain questions. And whilst I was not able to go meta to them, I couldn't even see my own beliefs.
So how did you come to understand that you didn't really believe that?
Because years afterwards, I would reflect on habits of being and doing, and even some of them expressed out loud. So one example I often give is when I used to play rhythm guitar largely when I was in my teens. And I was a pretty good rhythm player. I could play all sorts of stuff, nice, tight, punchy, good rhythm player. Sucked at lead guitar because I quit because I found it hard. Rhythm guitar I found easy. Lead guitar I found hard. Mm-hmm. So as soon as it became difficult, I concluded that I was missing certain capabilities that would enable me to play lead guitar, because that's how my brain worked at the time. I never questioned this. I just thought it was true. So I remember I used to say to people, I can't play lead guitar. And sometimes people would say to me, well, sure you can, and I go, no, I can't play lead guitar. I don't have the dexterity, this was my answer. I don't have the dexterity to play lead guitar. And I really believed that was true, right? Now, what I didn't recognize was that what's the deeper implication? The deeper implication of that is that I believe dexterity is something that is innate, right? And yet on another level, I was claiming nothing was innate. We're a blank slate when we come into the world and we learn everything. But on this level, I was believing in an innate quality called dexterity. Now, this was such a massive trance for me that I remember someone saying to me, well, just play your scales and you'll develop the dexterity. And to me, it was the equivalent of them saying, well, just flap your arms and you'll fly. Mm-hmm. I was like, what are they talking about? I don't have the dexterity. How can you develop something you don't have? Is this person an idiot? And I had no self-reflection of that. It seemed self-evidently true. My thoughts seemed self-evidently true. Again, what I see is all there is, and how I see it is how it is. My mind was making up the world, and I was believing it really was that way. Right? But on another level, when you asked me, I would say, no, we're a blank slate. Right? Here's another example that was a personal example for me. I used to go into this little diatribe back in my philosophy days about how rights were a construct, right? There's no such thing as rights. They are just a construct, and they may have some functionality and yada, 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 pure constructivist view of rights. And so if you'd have put me on the spot, I've said, no, that's absolutely true, 100%. And then back when I was first starting to teach hypnosis, I had one guy who was going for me all the time online and being really quite unpleasant to me. And I found it very upsetting. I was being personally attacked. I was upset by this, having a strong emotional response. It was making me want to not post things on social media. Mm-hmm. Now, it's one of the reasons I value felt sense, because I use felt sense a lot. So at that moment, I could feel into the sensation of it, feel into the quieter feeling underneath, and ask myself the question, what could this be about? Just stay with the energy of it. Ask the question, what could this be about? And out popped this. He has no right to speak to me this way. Oh, and I thought that I didn't believe in rights. I would have sworn on a conscious level I didn't believe in rights, but it's part of my deeper operating system. Right? That's not right. That little wounded, it's not fair. Fair is another one, right? I would have said fairness doesn't really exist in the world. It's but deep down, it's not fair. So I know there's a part of me that certainly believes in fairness and rightness and wrongness and all of that, in spite of what this other part might say. So sometimes these deeper beliefs that are there in the background, right? And you could draw the distinction between a core belief and a sort of contingent belief. Because when I ask the question about chimpanzees and silk pajamas, that's probably, the person will say, no, chimpanzees do not wear silk pajamas in the wild. But that's not a core belief. It's not something that's been under the surface running the game for years. But people should treat me fairly is a core belief that could be under the surface running the game for years, and you wouldn't know it, right? So if you look at the work of Byron Katie, if somebody's got like a belief like people should treat me fairly, she'll take it through a set of questions. She'll say, okay, so people should treat you fairly. Yes. Is that true? Now, the answer to the question might be yes, no, but a lot of time people will go yes. And then the second Byron Katie question is, can you absolutely know that that's true? People shouldn't treat you unfairly. Can you absolutely know that that's true? Now, with those kind of things, you can't actually, if you're honest, you can't say, yes, I absolutely know it's true. You might want it to be true.
Right.
You might wish it was true, but you can't absolutely know that it's true. So that's the second question. Third question in the Byron Katie format is, how do you respond? How do you feel inside when you believe that and somebody is not treating you fairly? And the question is, it hurts, right? That the answer is that it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's upsetting. Right? So she's now shifting the attention to not the truth of it, but what does it create? What's the consequence of the belief, not the truth of the belief, right? It's painful. And Byron Katie, she does lots of little bits around it. She'll go, oh, honey, that's what happens when we believe a lie. She'll do these little reframe pieces around it. She's a fantastic practitioner. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth question is, because you've agreed that you can't know it's true and it's painful, the fourth question is, so can you find a peaceful reason for continuing to hold on to that thought? Continuing to hold on to that belief. It's a leading question. Can you find a peaceful reason? Mm-hmm. Very clever little bit of linguistics there. And the answer is often no. Right? So it's like, so you're ready to let that go. And then she'll do 3 turnarounds. Right? So whereas you could connect to the belief of people should treat me fairly, let's say that was the belief, she'll get you to live into the truth of people shouldn't treat me fairly. right? I would say there's no rule in the universe that says people must. People shouldn't treat me fairly because life isn't fair, right? That would be one truth. You hang out in it, you feel it. Another turnaround might be, I should treat other people fairly. Can you experience the truth of that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can pick a third one. I always find it difficult to find three, but you ideally want to find three, which could be people should treat other people, or people shouldn't treat anyone fairly, or something like that. So you just want to get three alternative renderings that relate, and then they live into the truth of each one. They feel the truth of it, because they could feel the truth of the first one that they agreed wasn't true and they couldn't know was true.
Right.
Right. Something doesn't have to be true for you to experience the truth of it, because we do it all the time.
Right. Right.
You know, I could experience the truth of, like, if I were insecure and paranoid. I had a client just recently who was paranoid that their partner was cheating on them. Anyone could feel the insecurity and the paranoia of believing their partner was cheating on them, regardless of whether their partner was or not. So they could feel the truth of it, even if it wasn't true. So it's just kind of playing with these elements around truth. It's quite an interesting format to bring into belief change work and that kind of thing. I'll use elements of Byron Katie. I'll use elements of the left cone method sometimes if I'm going to go meta on beliefs. Anything that gets the system loosened up.
Does Byron Katie teach? Is that a modality she teaches, her form of it, or?
Yeah, she has a thing that she calls the work.
Oh, right. Okay, you've told me about that before.
I always recommend to people, I don't know if you can still get this, I'm sure you can, but her first book, which is called Loving What Is.
Mm-hmm.
Because the basic premise is stop being in argument with reality. And I love the Byron Katie line, if you see someone in argument with reality, put your money on reality because it will always win. So as soon as we're caught up in shoulds or shouldn'ts or what must or must not be, or any idea of reality that we rigidly adhere to that doesn't actually match reality, we are in argument with reality, right?
Okay, wait. How do we know what reality is?
That's an extremely good question, right? And like the way I would answer this question is that this is my Taoist answer to the question.
Okay.
So if you can't know truth, if all ideas, all thoughts, all beliefs are simply ways of making sense of the world,
Mm-hmm.
then let's assume there is a world. And to use the Heisenberg formula, the world is not any more complex than you think, it's more complex than you can think. So you're charged with making sense of something which is beyond sense.
Right.
But we have to do it anyway because that's the nature of it. So we come up with ideas about things. The first line of the Tao Te Ching is the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. Alfred Korzybski of General Semantics put it differently. The map is not the territory. So what we do is we get these maps of things, these beliefs, these ideas, and we think they're really true, right? The map is the territory. This is the way it is. Instead of going, no, this is a map. This is a rendering. This is a set of sense and sensibilities, and it can never be the territory. So then how do you evaluate, put value on a belief, right? And the only thing for me, is it serving? Is it of service to us in our engagement with the world? Like a map is useful if it serves you in getting around the territory. If it doesn't, we could say this map is no good. It's off kilter. It's bringing me out of Tao rather than into Tao. So for me, my calibration of truth, I'm not saying there's no truth. I'm just saying that our intellectual renderings or even our unconscious renderings, our conceptual renderings of truth are not truth. Right? I like the old X-Files line, the truth is out there. And the best that we get to do is maybe pull up alongside of it and kind of get close to it with our conceptual renderings. And if we do, we're able to engage well with it. We're able to be in Tao. So to me, it's very simple. If a belief is closer to truth, it will bring me closer to a harmonious and effective engagement with life and the world. If it's putting me in argument with things, if it's creating pain and suffering and struggle, it's sending me down dead ends, it's bringing frustration, then to me, it must be a shit idea or a shit belief because it's not, right? You know, like I can go, but it's really true that people should respect me, right? It's really true that it would be terrible if people thought I was an idiot. It's that idea bringing you into peace, harmony, good quality engagement with life and the world around you. higher levels of generativity, freedom, flow? If it's yes, great. If no, it's like, it's probably a shit belief because it's putting you in struggle. It's taking you out of Tao. It's having you cut against the grain in life. I.e., on the simplest level, is it serving you? That's the question. Is this belief serving me? Right? If the answer is no, then someone might go, well, I don't know whether it's serving me or not. Okay, is it helping you live your life nicer, better, freer? Is it helping you bring about good results? Right? And mostly the answer is no. So some people might have a belief, like, for example, someone might believe that worrying is keeping them safe. You know, they don't have any evidence of this. You know, so I often ask people, I say, can you think of anything in your life that has come out better because you worried about it? When I ask people this question, I don't think I've ever had anyone go, yeah, there was this one time I was really worried about that. I think maybe once I've had somebody say, yeah, I think worrying really helped me there. Right. So they've got a belief about worrying or about that thought style that they think is valid and they think is important, is actually encouraging them to do more of it. But if they step back and look at it from the outside and they go, hang on a second, how's that working for me? Is it serving me? Is it making my life better? And they go, oh my goodness, no. Right? If they go, well, it's not true, I know that, it's not making my life better, oh, what starts to happen to my motivation to hang on to that habit of thought when it's doing nothing but, you know, messing me up? So that's my take on it. That's my take on, like, how do you know whether it's true or not? Well, none of it's true on the one level, because whatever you say a thing is, you're wrong. Whatever words I use to describe this microphone will never be this microphone. Whatever thoughts I have about this microphone will never be this microphone. Likewise, whatever ideas I have about myself will never be myself. But they will create my experience of myself. And my ideas about this microphone will shape my engagement and my interactions with it, but they will never be it. So, like, the question is, it comes down to this sort of, like, on the one level, functionality. It's more about seeing beliefs as how do they function, you know, the utility of them, not the truth of them. And sometimes it's about the aesthetics. So I will calibrate when it comes to beliefs and thoughts. I will calibrate by utility and aesthetics over truth every time.
I can see how it would be fairly easy to get a client to start to see how a belief they have is not serving them. That seems easier than them coming to an understanding that it is or isn't true.
Yeah, it is easier. But this is the point about this kind of coaching. If you want to start coaching people up on this level, it's not like you're going to say a couple of words and someone's going to go, oh my goodness me. Maybe someone will have a Sydney Banks moment and you'll go, you know, that's just your thinking. And they go, oh,
right.
Oh my goodness, you're right. It might happen. But this is why I use this term, the truth trap. So it's a concept I've used for years. Truth, the idea of truth and truth addiction. It's inherently trapping, because when we see a thing as true, by goodness, does it really seem true? It really does. So when you start to try and change people's relationship to truth, and by the way, the freer they are in their relationship to it, the more psychological adaptiveness they have, you know, it's incredibly liberating, but it's a hard road because they start to see it. They go, yeah, I get that. And then the next thing, they're truth trapped again in some particular area. So the trick is often, if you're doing this kind of coaching with somebody, is they start to see it and they go, God, I really get this. The issue isn't that you get it. The issue is, when do you get it? It's when. So I might go, yeah, I really understand that my ideas about the world can never be the world. I really understand that my thoughts shape my experience and my perception, and they bias things and all that. I really understand that, and none of it's ever true. But yet in that moment where somebody's turned around and they've gone, what the hell's wrong with you, you idiot? And I'm like, and I'm reacting. I'm caught in a sense that if I'm wrong here, I'm a bad person. I'm truth trapped again. There's unconscious beliefs that start running that have me reacting. And I'm back in the truth of it, because in that moment, it really seems true. So that's the time that I want to be able to see, oh, I'm caught up in a bunch of ideas right now. Oh, are they serving me? Is this how I want to be? Is this the me that I want to show up through right now? And like, maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no. Chairs don't collapse when you sit in them. I have to have that belief largely, or I never sit in chairs. I'm never confident to sit in chairs, right? And if somebody says, but is that true? Right? There's no point me doubting that truth. There's no point doubting a truth that's 99% serving me most of the time.
So it sounds like this is a big part of your sessions, is uncovering the client's beliefs.
Yeah, I'm always aware that this is in the mix, because I'm aware that this is how we create our reality.
I guess with that in mind, because you were saying that you don't necessarily have a codified step-by-step how to uncover beliefs type of scenario, I was wondering about, do you have gambits for that? Do you have any little ways of doing it, or is it all just instinctual?
Well, partly it's instinctual, partly it's listening. So one thing I listen for is what I call key operational concepts. So you often have like concepts that recur over and over again. And some of them are more common than others. Control is a key operational concept that shows up a lot. So people have all sorts of beliefs and needs and desires around control. It's a regular one that shows up, and it's particularly toxic because most of the time the need for control is showing up in circumstances where control is not possible. So if we're trying to control the uncontrollable, we will have a bad time. And if we have an unconscious rule that says, I must control these things, otherwise terrible things will happen, we will suffer from threat response activation. Right? So like there's certain things, control comes up a lot. Trust is one that I hear come up a lot for people. Right? Now, these are not unproblematic concepts. Like, I don't know whether I can trust that person or not. Like, if you approached every chair with, I don't know whether I can trust that chair or not. Well, it's going to slow you down in life, because you're going to have to do some deeper exploration of every chair. And you say, well, I don't want to sit in it until I know that it can bear my weight. Well, how will you know before you sit in it? So people create these binds. So a lot of beliefs will create, in the way they interact with the world, binds that just trap people and stop people and lock them down and put them in unsolvable situations. So I'm looking for these kind of things. Now, I'll admit that across time, because I've been doing client work for basically nearly 20 years, I'm always listening for binds. I'm like, I've seen that one before. Oh, there's that familiar one. There's that old chestnut again. A lot of people do the same kinds of binds. So I end up with certain mechanisms and certain conversational hypnosis pieces and certain gambits. I'll go, yeah, I've seen that one before. I'm going to deploy that one right now. So a good example of that might be, a lot of people are constantly processing other people's judgments of them through their sense of self. And they perceive there being a genuine sort of existential threat in other people seeing them in negative ways. This is an extraordinarily common pattern, right? It underlies all social anxiety, and a lot of anxiety that probably goes beyond that people wouldn't think of as immediately social anxiety. It often underpins a lot of anger issues, because some people respond in an angry way when they are misunderstood or misjudged or whatever. But again, there's something that is believed to be true, although not consciously believed to be true. So why should I be upset if you think one thing or another about me? That's the question. Nobody ever thinks about this, but they often are, right? So I want to get people to be freer, to not feel affected by or changed by the judgments of others. So I'll often take people through a little process. Sometimes I do it as a thought experiment. I say, okay, so I want you to now take a few moments to think some terrible things about me, right? Don't worry too much about how true they are. Just really get into the feeling like that I'm a terrible person or something like this. Right now, very hypnotic clients, they can really, hypnotically responsive clients can really disappear into this reality and go, oh my God, I don't know if I want to be in this session anymore.
Right.
But it's only a fleeting moment. I say, so just get into those, just think some terrible thoughts about me for a moment. It doesn't matter how much they do it. I say, now just clear those out and just think some good things, right? Again, not too important whether they're true or not, but just allow yourself to connect into some good ideas about me. I go, uh-huh. I say, now, as you did that, do you think anything at all changed about who I am? And they will usually conclude no. Right? I say, right. So regardless of what you think about me in this moment, nothing actually changes about who I am. So your thoughts, your ideas, they can't change me in any way. They go, right. So they can't destroy me or hurt me or harm me because they can't change me, right? Now I'm inviting them into a reality. I know logically someone could make some case. People can always make a case. So I get them in and they go, right. I say, okay, now just relax for a moment because I'm going to do the same for you, right? But I'm not going to tell you whether I'm thinking good thoughts or bad thoughts or what kind of thoughts I'm thinking. But trust me right now, my thoughts are changing all the time. Now, are you changing? I mean, on a fundamental level, maybe your thoughts are changing as well and your mood is changing. Maybe your attention is shifting. But that happens anyway in life, right? So I start doing this piece to recalibrate people's unconscious beliefs about the meaning of the judgment of others, the threat. I want to run the charge off the threat here so they can start becoming a lot more free, a lot more relaxed in the face of opinions of others. So because part of what I want to do there is create freedom, particularly if they've come in with anxiety. That's a fear-based thing, right? We want freedom from that. That's what they say they want. So that's a sort of belief change piece that's a gambit, but it's because I get a hunch that they've got this particular common organization of reality whereby they're processing other people's opinions through their sense of self and believing on some level that it changes them, right? That it's hurting them.
You mentioned earlier key operational concepts.
Yeah.
You said control and trust. Are there others that are?
Yeah, they'll be different for different people. Like you might just hear a recurring metaphor that comes up all the time. You know, any word, any concept, like, you know, the toxic ones are usually, you can tell what the ones that are going to mess up the system. If someone's talking about love a lot, it's probably not going to be too big a problem, but it could be if they're overemphasizing it, right? I had somebody the other day, here's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So love, they did keep talking about love. And I think for them, they had not a good sense of what love was. And the issue that they had is they said, like, my wife won't even say whether she loves me or not. Right? I keep saying to her, do you love me? Do you love me? Right? and he's like, well, she should be able to just say, she should know whether she loves me or not. You know, so what does he believe about love that he has not questioned? What is love to him? What does he believe about it? How does it work? One thing we know is he's assuming that whatever love means to him means the same. You know, if she asks me that, I can say it straight away. Of course I love her, right? The thing is, he still loves her, even though he's frustrated and angry and all of that. I know that I love my wife, right? He's just knows. It's just a decision he's made. But maybe love for her is something different. Maybe she doesn't know what it is. Maybe it's complex. Maybe maybe it's more about a feeling, because he would say he loves her even if he's not feeling any love. So they've got love built in different ways. And his demand that she operates by the same mechanisms around love and all of this as he does is creating a problem because he's putting pressure on her all the time. She experiences the pressure. That doesn't help her feel good. It doesn't help her have warm feelings. So it's driving a toxic engagement. So one of the things I did with this guy is I said, you know, what does that mean to you, love? You know, when you say I love her, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, I just love her. I just know I do. Yeah, but like, how do you know? Do you love her all the time equally? Like sometimes I'm guessing you're feeling frustrated. Would you say you still love? Well, I still love her. So I'm like, so love works in a certain way for you, right? But how would it be if it was very different? Because some people, they calibrate more on their feelings. You know, am I feeling good? Am I feeling warm feelings? You know, so I'm giving an alternative rendering of love so that he can compare and contrast And the conclusion that he came to of his own volition was that badgering her to make some line in the concrete declaration of love that had no relationship to ongoing process or flow. Again, here's another way I think about the way we organize reality. This guy has got what I would call a blocky rendering of reality, right? Everything's this or that. It's this chunk or that chunk, right? There's no nuances, no shades of gray, no flow, no fluidity, no in between. Right now, if somebody has a blocky rendering, I remember I worked with a guy once who said he was taking a break from a relationship with his girlfriend. And he said, I just want to make sure that while we take this break, that the relationship remains undamaged. Right? It's like, okay. So I know that he's in his mind, the relationship is a blocky thing. It's like a guitar or something like that, because a guitar can be undamaged or it can be damaged. Right? It's not got anything to do with you whether you play it or not. So it's more about the guitar than the music for him, if we use that metaphor. So he's got this kind of blocky rendering. I think I said to this guy, I said, if you smashed your hand down on a guitar, because I did use the guitar metaphor with this guy, what would happen to it? He said, well, it would break, right? Acoustic guitar, just thinking of, well, it might break, you can damage it. I said, right. I said, what if you smashed your hand down on the surface of a pond? He said, well, there would be some ripples and then it would become steady again. I said, right. So what makes you think that a relationship is more like a guitar than a pond or even a river that's flowing? Right? I can't remember if I said that at the time, but I might say that now. I want to go from pond to river that's flowing. Now, all of this is starting to take different concepts, because at the deepest level, we have concepts like this, that, solid, fluid. These are the kind of really basic concepts that we have, right? Spatial concepts, qualities about materials and how things are. We're always thinking in metaphor. So I'm kind of like sometimes getting a sense of what's going on here. Someone's got very solid, blocky renderings of things. He's been trying to be careful around this relationship, make sure it's not damaged. So he's being very protective of it. He's trying to be protective. She wants to have some distance. He wants to be protective. It's not driving a useful engagement. So I kind of like listening at these levels, metaphor, a sense of how much fluidity is in there, how much blockiness is in there. Even if someone has a concept like trust, how does that work? Is that a fluid rendering? Is it a blocky rendering? Or love, is it a fluid rendering? Is it a blocky rendering? Because it does not mean the same thing, So we could always assume that love is always a good thing. But if somebody's got a dysfunctional concept of love, it might be driving them into dysfunctional relationships with others, the world around them, that sort of thing. So I just always have a sense for this, and I'm curious about it. I'm kind of listening, and certain things will prick my ears. Sometimes I might ask the question, what would this person need to believe in order to make sense of this behavior? I call that speculative semantic modeling. And I call it speculative because it's guesswork. I'm purely guessing. But if most people go, why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, hang on a second, before they're proclaiming that it doesn't make any sense, why don't you think about what kind of sense might be underneath of it that would make it make sense? So there's a stretch. It's like, well, that doesn't compute according to my worldview. So therefore, it must compute according to their worldview. So what must they believe that is different from me? Or what might they believe that's different from me that would have them that would make sense of that behavior, that would have that behavior be sensible behavior?
So you're thinking this in your mind, you're asking yourself this as you're in the session, if you're trying to understand?
No, but I have done a lot in the past. Now it's like it's habituated, right? So I will run that kind of like those sets of filters unconsciously without even knowing I'm running them.
Right.
But I have gone through a phase in the past of this idea of speculative semantic modeling. We were talking about amnesias earlier.
Right.
I have amnesia for this until we started talking about it.
Right.
But this was a big thing for me for quite a while. And it came about as a big thing because initially when I got into NLP, which I got into for myself, to change myself, there was the idea of modeling. And I was introduced to the concept of modeling. And modeling is just, okay, we figure out how somebody else does something. How do they see things? What are their cognitive processes? What are their behavioral processes? And we just look at it as a collection of patterns. And we assume that all patterns are learned and learnable. So if we can map the patterns, we can learn the patterns. And everything has a structure. So if you go, oh, that person's so like good with other people, you can map the patterns of their goodness, which will be at the behavioral level, perhaps at the belief level and at the cognitive level. When you get them, you can learn them for yourself. And you can have more of that thing that you want. So when I first got into NLP, I did a lot of modeling. But here's the thing. The initial books I read talked about modeling, but they didn't tell you how to do it.
I was just going to ask you that. Did they ever lay out?
They never did.
Huh.
So now, at some point, I did a training called Real NLP Modeling with John Grinder, which is a process of modeling called implicit modeling. But this is not what I learned to start with. Mm-hmm. In fact, I didn't learn anything. I just learned that people were patterned and that you could model those patterns. And if you could model those patterns, you could kind of install those patterns in yourself, to use the language of NLP. Now, there's a distinction I really like, which is how to versus want to. If you ever say to somebody, like, why don't you do X? And they go, well, I don't know how to. That's always a lie. It's always a lie. Mm. Because if somebody really wants to, they do it anyway, even if they don't know how to, right? You decided years ago, oh, I'm going to get into making movies.
Right.
And you didn't stop and figure out how to. You just got on with taking whatever actions seemed to be aligned with that, doing more of what worked and less of what didn't.
Right.
But if you'd have gone like, oh, I'd really love to make movies, I just don't know how to, well, you're stuck forever.
Right.
So I didn't know how to with modeling, but I knew that I wanted to.
Mm.
And I'd read enough in NLP about beliefs, about how we made sense of the world, to start to see that the map is not the territory, but my map counts. So I want to be able to get other people's maps. What's that guy got going on in his life that I want? Well, I need more of his map. But he doesn't know what his map is, right? So how do I get his map if he doesn't know what it is? Now, in part, you can ask questions, and that's one way, but that question has to be driven by your curiosity. But also, the thing that I started doing is just asking myself the question, what would have to be true for him, or what might have to be true for him in order for him to behave that way, or what kind of beliefs might he have that would make sense? So I just started to get into the speculative realm, and I did it with a lot of people. So mostly not clients initially, just people out there in the world who were living their lives more like I wanted to live my life, right? Well, they're rising up in that situation where I'm laying low. So what's different in how they see things from how I see things? So I'd go into this kind of speculative thing, and I would do a lot of I'd take those speculated belief constructs, and then I would kind of live into them and live from them. I call it bathing in them, which is basically doing a piece of self-hypnosis or living into the truth of them, coming alive in the trance of them. And I would do that as a self-change process. And it was very powerful, and it made a lot of difference. But it also developed this unconscious habit of being cognizant of the fact that people are always believing something, that underneath of every behavior set, there's some set of sense that makes sense of it. And just being curious about that. So I kind of carried that naturally into change work, into client work, that tendency to model in that way. But again, I never, I've talked about this in the past, I've talked about it for years. People go, oh, I'd love to do a training on that speculative semantic modeling. I'm like, yeah, I don't really know how to teach that. I can talk about it, but I'm not really sure how to teach it. Because again, most of it was done through trial and error, through unconscious learning, through basically driven by curiosity. Like, wow, what must they believe? What must be true for them? I was initially fascinated by the idea of beliefs and belief systems, Like you get fascinated by things. I'm like, this is really interesting. I really want to learn about this.
I think that's why when you presented the 3 minds model, I got so excited about that idea of making shifts in the semantic base. It's that, it's beliefs. It's like, how do you help people change, or how do you change your beliefs?
Yeah. I just think if you don't change your belief, if your belief doesn't change, like if I believe that I'm an incompetent sack of shit, right? And I feel unconfident when I'm going for a job interview, I'm never going to feel anything other than unconfidence so long as I believe that I'm an incompetent sack of shit, right? It just ain't going to change.
Right.
So I've got to open up to a new possibility at least. I don't have to have necessarily a new certainty that I'm highly competent and capable. That, but at least,
right,
have some deep unconscious skepticism about my old belief and an openness to a possibility that there might be more going on here than meets the eye, and maybe, just maybe, I might crush this. Right? There's got to be some kind of belief change level, or nothing's changing.
So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. What really stuck with me was this idea that most people don't actually know what they believe until it's explored and unpacked in an explicit way. And I also love that reminder that we don't need to convince ourselves something isn't true. It can be simpler or more powerful just to ask, is this serving me? If you have thoughts, questions, or ideas for future topics, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at changeworkingpod@gmail.com. See you next time.
Changeworking is produced by Ruckus Sky. For information on training, go to clientshifts.com.